Also, please note that we have the QR code to the report that is placed on the side of the walls and is also projected. The Wi-Fi password is also on the wall. The bathrooms are just outside by the door to your right. Just walk down to your right. Thank you. I would like to call the provincial manager, Ms. Shirley Lombo, to do the opening enrollment.
Good morning. Good morning to everybody. Please do excuse my voice. I'll try my best under the circumstances. Mine is a very simple task, which is to officially open today's launch and welcome all of you today. It is a very important day, a culmination of many months of work looking into the complaints of alleged unfair discrimination that have been lodged. And as we will be delivering our report today, we look forward to constructive engagements with you on the content of the report. But ultimately, we hope that we'll all leave here with a renewed sense of commitment, renewed, efforts to ensure that the resources of the country are equitably shared by all who live in it, and that all of us can partake into the opportunities that this beautiful country of ours presents. With that, I would like to once again thank all of you for being here and welcome you to this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lombo. I would like to call Commissioner Madhugosi to come and do the overview of the report.
Dumelang, good morning. As was announced, my name is Tsepo Madhugosi. I am a commissioner at the Human Rights Commission, Commissioner for Anti-Racism, Equality and Education. It is an honor to deliver this report, and I stand on the protocol established. As a program director, I will not be reading the report. I will give an overview of the report. 70 years ago, Johann Schoeman erected a monument on top of the mountain, Sanchi Hawk Mountain. The monument is a cause to General Hendrik Schoeman. Who was Hendrik Schoeman? Hendrik Schoeman was, as I said, a general. He owned a farm called Hartbeespoort farm. He was a military man, but by all accounts, not a very effective military man. In fact, twice he was charged with treason by the Boers. In 1896, he started the project to build a dam. He called the dam Sophia Dam. Sophia Dam after his wife. Later he changed it to Hartbeespoort Dam. Unfortunately, he died in 1901, tragic death, killed by a shell that he was showing to one of his guests, a shell that he had collected from the war, a trinket, a souvenir, 1901. What does this have to do with the launch of this report, the investigative report into allegations of racial discrimination within and around Hartbeespoort Dam? Well, Schoeman got to own the farm because the land was declared the Z Republic, one of the two Boer colonies declared in 1852. The project was stalled, but his son, Johan Schoeman, continued the project to build the dam. Mother Nature delayed the project, but there was another delay, a court case. The court case, because, of course, by that time, 1910, the Union of South Africa had been established. The court case had to do with something that we are all familiar with, expropriation. Court case had to do with the state, the colonial state, expropriating the land in order to continue this project. That land and the land owned by a Mr. Mashaville, expropriation. However, this is only a partial history because of the condition of possibility for the colony coming into existence was the killing, the displacement, and the economic subjugation of indigenous people. That's how ZAR came to be, or the Republic of Transvaal. The displacement of Matabele people, the raids and the killing of the Buenas, Matlaping, and of course the war against Sekhukhune. The dam that we're talking about, the land that we're talking about, is therefore a land soaked in a painful history, a history of colonialism, a history of displacement, economic subjugation, cultural subjugation, and displacement. Did or has the post-apartheid state reversed that history, that painful history? The Constitution in the preamble enjoins all of us to, number one, recognize the injustice of the past and proactively redress those past. This year, we mark a number of anniversaries. The first anniversary, of course, is that this year is the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter. The Freedom Charter, as you know, opens with a very significant phrase: South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Belongs to all who live in it, and that they must share in all its resources. What most people don't go deeper into is the last clause. People focus on the first clause, but the last clause says, let there be friendship and peace in our land. What are the conditions for peace and harmony in the land? The second anniversary, of course, is that this year is the third anniversary of the establishment of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The commission that was meant to assist in nation building, healing, and reconciliation. There's a lot of other anniversaries that I can go into. But the last anniversary, of course, is that this year for us as the Human Rights Commission is the 30th anniversary of the establishment of the institution, the Human Rights Commission, 30 years ago. This has been a milestone year for us, where we are looking deeper into where we have failed, where we have succeeded, where we could have done better to fulfill our mandate, the promotion of a culture of human rights based on the history that I've charted. As part of this reflection, this critical reflection, this year in March, we launched a campaign, a 6-year campaign called Promoting the Culture of Human Rights through the Resolution of the National Question. We are saying to ourselves, every year we resolve about 6,000 complaints. Very, very proud of that. 6,000 complaints that we resolve, mostly to do with basic services, water, electricity, healthcare, and then secondly, equality. But we are saying, what are the root causes of systemic human rights violations? And therefore, as per the name of the campaign, we are saying the failure to resolve the national question is at the heart of systemic human rights violations. So it is our critical reflection to move away from individual focus on human rights violation to look deeper into the root causes, nation building. There will never be nation building unless there's reparation, redress, restitution. Let's be clear about that. That is the mandate of the Constitution. The tagline to that report says, there will never be nation building unless there's a collective sense of belongingness, collective sense of belongingness. Everyone in South Africa must feel a sense of belonging. And by belonging, we mean it in two ways: material belonging and affective belongingness. Affective, you feel that you are South African. But it's not good enough to feel that you're South African if there's no material belongingness, sharing in the resources. Otherwise, it will just be kumbaya. It will just be symbol. What was that SABC one tagline? Simunye, without deep material belongingness. That is where we are coming from. How do we build a society where everyone will feel a sense of belongingness? And that is the overall frame that guides this report that we are launching today. The report that we are launching today is a report that is restricted to one area, the shoreline around the Hartbeespoort Dam. As I said, a dam that is the land that is owned by the state. Small focus, one province, but it's a microcosm. That's how serious we take it. It's a microcosm of the issues that we are dealing with in South Africa. What is the background to this report or this investigation? The background is a complaint launched by Mr. Ndluli on behalf of the Hartbeespoort Dam Development Initiative. The complaint was at two levels. Firstly, that the state, in its practice, in its pattern, is guilty of unfair discrimination against Black applicants. That for over a decade, Black applicants have been making applications, but so far only 2 or so have been accepted. That even permissions to occupy have been revoked without due processes. And that the administrative incompetence of the Department of Water and sanitation of the Madibe contributes to this unfair discrimination. There was also a complaint that SAPS and SAMSA have been weaponized in the application of the bylaws and in the enforcement of the law around the area. That is the nature of the complaint. The methodology that we adopted was a fourfold methodology. Fourfold methodology. One, by way of correspondence with all the parties, the residents, SAPS, the department, as well as Madibe. Two, site inspection. Number three, subpoena hearing. We had to use that tool against the state, a subpoena hearing against the Department of Water and Sanitation, represented by the DG, the Director General. And then lastly, we had a number of engagements to understand the issues. With the group that is led by Mr. Mdluli, with the predominantly white residents, with the Madibe and other stakeholders. We received a number of submissions from the black residents or applicants, submission from the white residents, submission from SAPS, submissions from the Department of Water and Sanitation, and submissions from Madibe, local municipality. I will then summarize the nature of the submissions. Summarize. So if I don't fully capture the submission, it's there in the report. What I'm doing here is just to summarize it. I will start with the submission of the black residents, who, as I said, alleged historic and ongoing racial exclusion. In a nutshell, number one, they allege a pattern of blacklist applications that have been delayed or denied. Two, they allege that the PTOs, the permission to occupy, were issued, then revoked without due process. Underline that part. Number three, that there were white occupants of the shoreline who were there without proper documentation or without paying rent because of historical issues. That's the fourth allegation. Third allegation. The fourth allegation, of course, was about differential treatment in the enforcement of bylaws, noise pollution, policing, and so forth. Fourthly and lastly, they expressed deep frustration with state institutions, frustration and distrust of institutions, including, I must add, the South African Human Rights Commission, not happy with us as the South African Human Rights Commission about how we have dealt with this complaint. That is the nature of the submission. From the white residents, number one, their submission number one rejected allegations of systemic racism. Number two, conversely, alleged that there was no proper enforcement of the bylaws, noise pollution, and so forth. No proper enforcement of bylaws. Number three, that the administrative failures in the DWS, in the Madibe, led to some of this hardship, as well as inadequate environmental regulation. And then lastly, they expressed the notion that it is unfair that their concerns are characterized as racism. A deep unhappiness that their concerns are characterized or mischaracterized as an example of racism. The Department of Water and Sanitation, there we have a big concession. The concession being, yes, it is true that there is discrimination in the occupancy of the shoreline. It acknowledged exclusion and skewed opportunities. However, they sought to explain this as a historical problem, as a pre-democracy issue. So concession with a qualifier. Secondly, they considered to administrative weaknesses in the department, including missing historical lease records, and that some of the current occupiers they cannot, as a department, account for. Thirdly, it was confirmed at the time of the subpoena that 16 entities were occupying state land without leases or PTOs. 16 entities, 16. Of these entities, 3 were or are white male owned, 2 female owned, 2 black male owned. Sorry, let me start again. Of these entities, 3 are white male owned, 2 are white female owned, 2 are black male owned, 1 black female owned, and then 8 people of different races and genders. At the subpoena hearing, it was confirmed that since 2012, leases were approved, 2 for white male entities, 1 for black male-owned entities, and 1 for mixed race entities. By mixed race, we mean those entities that are comprised of different people from different races. We don't mean interracial, we mean mixed race in that sense. So all 4 leases were approved in the last 2 years. The department justified the granting of the 2 leases to white applicants despite the skewed occupation on the basis that they quote unquote are preserving jobs. That's the clear explanation that we got, justification from the department. Despite the skewed occupation, we are granting leases because we seek to preserve the jobs. The assumption is very clear there. I don't need to explain the assumption in relation to black enterprises. Lastly, confirmed in relation to the PTOs that they were revoked without due process, without affording recipients an opportunity to be heard. Basic principles of natural justice, because they claimed that the schemes were unlawful. Let me come to SAPS. SAPS denied any allegation of racial bias, and they provided delays for all those cases that were said that there were a failure on their side to investigate these cases. They provided explanation. 2, they explained that some matters were under investigations and some matters were not involved with the NPA because of insufficient evidence, with the NPA therefore declining to prosecute. 3, that indeed there was 1 white suspect that has been successfully prosecuted for pointing a firearm at a black resident. The last submission that I wish to highlight is from Madibe. As I said, we had an engagement with them, but we also invited them to submit a submission, to make a submission. We had an engagement with the speaker, as well as the municipal manager, as well as the acting mayor. Madibe also considered one concession for a backlog. Two, that in some cases there was a bylaws as far as noise pollution is concerned. Three, poor enforcement capacity. And then four, the perennial problem in South Africa, poor leadership. Considered that there was poor leadership and instability in Madibe. In fact, I think when we met them, the municipal manager had just been appointed on a permanent basis. Although it made several commitments, the Madibe local municipality, including that they will conduct a land audit, that they will enact and gazette the bylaws, that they will bolster enforcement capacity, the municipality at the time of writing the report had not provided those updates and those details. They did not honor their undertakings, the municipality. Let's go to the findings. Before I come to the findings, let me emphasize that the Human Rights Commission is a Chapter 9 institution. It's an institution created in terms of Chapter 9 of the Constitution. Section 181 of the Constitution says we must do our work independently, impartially, without fear or favor, only subject, not to the president, not to parliament, not to anyone, but to the Constitution and the law. Section 184 is very clear in terms of our mandate. Our mandate only extends as far as the promotion, the protection, the monitoring of. That is the honors of our mandate, the promotion, protection, and monitoring of human rights. I say this to say the following: allegations of maladministration, allegation against police officers and subs, allegations against poor administrative conduct fall outside of our purview. We did receive those allegations, but they fall outside of our purview. SAPS, maladministration, administrative misconduct fall outside of our purview, and we will emphasize that people must submit those complaints against those relevant bodies. In a nutshell, we find that the Department of Water and Sanitation has over many years failed to redress racial and gender disparities in the leasing processes. That's the headline finding, that the Department of Water and Sanitation failed to redress the gender and racial disparities. So although the allegations was about racial conduct, we extended the lens to also look at gender from an intersectional perspective. We found that the Department of Water and Sanitation, the State Department, is in violation of Section 9 of the Constitution. The Department of Water and Sanitation is in violation of the prevention, the promotion of equality, and the prevention of unfair discrimination, the PEPUDA. Section 6, Section 7B, Section 7E, Section 8C of PEPUDA. The state is in violation of that. Let me be very clear. Unfair discrimination is not only because of commission. The court has been very clear that unfair discrimination also exists where there is omission. And this is, of course, grounded in the preamble of the Constitution. It's grounded in Section 9, 2 of the Constitution, which makes it very clear that the state must take positive, proactive measures to achieve redress for those who are historically disadvantaged. Section 7 is very, very important in the Constitution. It not only enjoins the state to protect and to promote human rights, it goes further. The state must fulfill human rights. It's not just a passive duty to promote, to protect, to promote. It must fulfill the rights in the Constitution, Section 7 of the Constitution. I won't go to many cases that we cite, but we ground our understanding in the Constitution. Let me just quote one case from the Constitutional Court. And the court said the following: absent a positive commitment progressively to eradicate socially constructed barriers to equality and to root out systemic and institutionalized underprivilege, the constitutional promise of equality before the law and its equal protection and benefit must, in the context of our country, ring hollow, a charade, a mirage, absent a progressive intention to eradicate systemic barriers and to root out institutionalized underprivilege. Accordingly, the state had a duty to ensure that it redresses historical exclusion of Black and female applicants from the from the Hartbeespoort Dam economy. On its own admission, as at the time of subpoena, it had failed to do so by its own admission. Even when it had an opportunity by way of applications, it elected to award 2 leases to white applicants against 1 lease awarded to Black applicant. Section 1 of PEPUDA is very clear. The promotion of equality and the prevention of unfair discrimination is very act. It recognizes discrimination, as I said, also through omission. In turn, the indirect unfair discrimination against Black and female applicants resulted in violation of Section 10 of the Constitution. What is Section 10? The right to dignity. And this is a sense that we got from our engagement with Black applicants. And it's not only an economic issue, it's also a dignity issue. We feel humiliated, we feel marginalized, we feel invisibilized, unseen. So Section 10 of the Constitution. Section 33 of the Constitution is the right to a just administrative action. Section 33. By its own admission, the department violated Section 33 of the Constitution, the right to a just administrative action by revoking PTOs without proper due course. They did not give applicants an opportunity in terms of Section 3 of PAJA, promotion of just administrative act. They did not give them the opportunity to be heard. Now, Madibe local municipality, it failed to adopt and enforce bylaws that are regulating noise, planning, and building controls, Madibe. And it failed to process planning and licensing applications timeously in violation of residents' rights to fair administrative action. It is these institutional failures that have also contributed to the racial tension. Because as I said, on the one hand, Black residents are saying there's been a weaponization of noise pollution bylaws. On the other hand, white residents are saying there is no enforcement. So its failure is not only an administrative issue, it's not only a governance failure, it also contributes to social harmony, to nation building, as well as the racial tensions that we saw in the community. In view of the above, we make the following directives as a Human Rights Commission. We make the following directives. 1, the Department of Water and Sanitation must finalize and adopt the revised lease policy and related regulations within 180 days, 180 days, and submit this to the Commission. We need a revised lease policy within 180 days. 2, the department, in view of what we said, must adopt a clear transformation plan. I started with the history for good reason. The history of this land, the history of colonialism, displacement, expropriation, subjugation. In view of that, the department must adopt a clear transformation plan which must contain numerical transformation targets. I know that's very controversial. Let me repeat it. The transformation plan must contain numerical transformation targets, measures to address historical exclusion, and the timelines to deal with outstanding lease application, as well as a transparent communication plan, also within 180 days. The department must review all the PTOs that it revoked, must review them, must restate them, underline the word, where appropriate. They must reinstate PTOs that have been revoked where appropriate, and they must allow affected person to make representation and report back to the Commission. Of course, colleagues, this directive does not mean that the department will not revoke those PTOs. That is their prerogative. We don't want to step into that. But they must follow due process. This must not be understood as saying there must be reinstatement for eternity. They wish to revoke, they must do so, following due process. Thirdly, the department should conduct an audit of all occupiers along the dam within 90 days. Within 90 days, we want to see an audit of the occupiers, as well as a plan to ensure that everyone who's there is not a squatter, it's not illegal. Okay, within 90 days. Madibeng should, within 90 days, provide a disaggregated of all the planning, building, business, and licenses applications. Within 90 days, we want to see a record disaggregated by gender, by race, of all the planning, building, and business license applications. And that they must have a 180-day plan to clear all the backlogs, 180 days. Secondly, Madibeng must, within 90 days, submit a plan on how they intend to contribute to transformation of the dam within its mandate, as far as a mandate extends. Thirdly, within 90 days, Madibeng must finalize, must gazette all outstanding bylaws on noise, on environmental management, on land use, and submit an enforcement strategy. So they must gazette the noise, environmental management, and the land use bylaws, and submit an enforcement strategy. There's no use having bylaws without an enforcement strategy. Silly, doesn't make sense. And this enforcement strategy must talk about how they plan to capacitate law enforcement functions in Hartbeespoort to ensure effective and non-selective enforcement. Effective and non-selective enforcement. Colleagues, of course, all these plans for Madibeng must be gazetted. There must be consultation process, of course, and that all affected stakeholders must be able to make representation. So we're not just saying the plan must come to us within those days. There must be a consultation process as a law function. Parties with complaints related to maladministration, corruption, irregularities in leasing are advised to approach the Office of the Public Protector of South Africa for redress. All those complaints relating to maladministration, corruption, irregularities, we urge you to please approach the PPSA. Parties with unresolved criminal complaints are advised to approach the Northwest Provincial Commissioner for redress. Those are our findings. Those are our directives. The directives that are aimed at ensuring belongingness materially and effectively. There are directives that are aimed at easing the racial tensions. We hope so. There are directives that are aimed at directing the Department of Water and Sanitation to get its house in order. And that Madibeng must also govern properly, must do its work. But lastly, they will go a long way at addressing historical injustice, because it is a historical injustice. Let's be very clear about that. Objections to the findings. We did receive a lot of objections to the provisional report, including that the persistent denials of unfair discrimination. Some objections were about the limited scope of our investigations. Thirdly, that some of our directives were impractical in terms of restoring the PTOs. And then lastly, that it is unlawful to set numerical targets. Colleagues, if you look at the final report, we took into account, as far as we could, your objections. But we do our work without favor, without fear, independently, within the law. So we apologize that we can't please everyone. But we hope that by this report, we've gone a long way in addressing some of your complaints, including the delay from the commission side. Complaints that took years ago, not attended to. I won't go to how we've addressed all those objections. They are in the report. In conclusion, the report speaks to more than land, leases, and administrative processes. It speaks to belonging, dignity, and equality. It speaks to the lived experiences of people who feel excluded and unheard. It speaks to a community divided along racial lines and to the responsibility of public institutions to heal, not to deepen those divides. The Commission's role is to ensure that rights are protected and that the promises of the Constitution are realized in practice. We therefore call upon Sanitation, Madibeng, SABS, and all stakeholders to treat those findings and directives not as a criticism, but as an opportunity to rebuild trust, to restore fairness, and to advance transformation in this land. We stand ready to monitor compliance with this directive, and of course, we reserve the right to litigate where these directives are not enforced. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Thank you so much, Commissioner Madingozi. I am now going to open up the floor for reflections, questions, and answers. So how I'm going to do this is I'll just take maybe like 3 comments or questions from the floor and give over to the panel, so on and so forth. Thank you. The floor is officially opened. 2. You only have 2 hands. 3, okay. Let me take the first round and then, yeah. Please start by introducing yourself, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Mpo Rajisus. I'm the Chief Director Legal Services within the Department of Water and Sanitation. Mine is just to ask a clarity-seeking question in terms of the time frames that are provided, and I see the report is signed on the 24th of November, and then it's released today. Are we calculating the days? And I should not be ready to mean that we have not been doing anything. I just want to get that clarity so that we don't miss each other. Are we calculating from the 180 days from today and going forward, or? So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Slindalo Masinani from ENCA. I would like to get clarity on who the objections came from. And perhaps has there been an indication that this report will be taken on review legally? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Hartley. I'm also a member of the Hartbeespoort Development Initiative, and also one of the complainants, a business owner in Hartbeespoort. I must say, we thank you, Human Rights Commission. You have tried. And I must emphasize, you have tried. You have not been able to cover all parts. You have failed in great extent to be able to expose the racial discrimination in Hartbeespoort Dam, but you have tried. I think from where you started, we can move forward, because what you have presented is unfortunately not a true version or a correct version or the full version of the in-depth of the racial discrimination in Hartbeespoort. And we're not going to shy about it. We're not going to fail to even express it, that it exists. However, even in your report on page 17, we do acknowledge that you consulted with Black applicants and you consulted with white applicants, but you failed to come for the third time for us to give us an opportunity to comment on what our counterparts have said. And that obviously gave an opportunity for them to openly deny racial discrimination that they practice, that they live by on a daily basis. And we would have been able to assist you more by giving even more evidence of where it is and where they deny it. But it is okay. We will move from this one and we'll build on this one. I will be more happy if you have said at the end, you indicated that those who are happy with the report or with the directives, they will approach the public protector. But your report says we could face litigation. And I think we'll prefer more to go to court, because we're tired of this racial discrimination. We're tired of being nice about it. We have to be able to deal with it 100%. But thank you so much. This is the first step towards achieving democracy in this country. Thank you.
I think just to add to what my colleague has said, my name is also from HCDI. We really appreciate at least the people that heard us when we had so much frustration, and you really went to an extent to assist and help. But it hasn't stopped there, because we felt that despite what the Human Rights Commission started doing, our fellow counterparts in the West, they were lobbying other estates, white estates, to try to block us. And we felt that's not fair, because even those were not on the shoreline that they were recruiting, to come and stop us to get what we need to get. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm gonna hand over to the. I had said I'm gonna start taking 3 questions actually, and then to the panel, and then I'll take another round of questions. So you can hand over to the panel. We'll take another round. Thank you.
Okay, come. Thank you so much for those questions. The question from the department, the clock start ticking from today. Yes, judgment is handed down, the clock start ticking. So not from the date on the report, but from today PM. Let's be very clear about that. From today, the clock starts ticking. The clock starts. Yeah. Objections came from the complainants, the black residents. Objections came from the white residents. Objections came from the Department of Water and Sanitation. In a nutshell, we have not received any indication that anyone is going to review the report. Of course, it's a given, colleagues, that this is a report and it can be reviewed. Of course, I should have said that, but no, we have not received any indication. Hartley, you didn't mention your surname, so I'll just call you Hartley. The reply, yes, we did not do that. That's true, we did not do that. And what we hope to do is that in the provisional report, we have a sight of what the stakeholders are saying, and we'll be able to submit counter allegations or even refutations to those things. So we avoided a sense where it's back and forth. Maybe something to think about, but that's not our methodology. Our approach is that we listen to all the stakeholders, we release a provisional report publicly, openly, not publicly, but openly to all the stakeholders, and that is the say, on this one, we agree, on this one, we completely reject, as you did so. So that was our approach. Ms. Maseko, the lobbying, Maseko. Oh, completely different Maseko. Apologies for that, Maseko. Yes, I don't think I can. This fell outside the preview of what we're looking at, but you are allowed to come with those further allegations. It's for us to look at. Yeah. PM, do you like anything? Okay. You want to do that? Yeah.
Let the record show I'm coming under duress. Adopting commissioner's culture, but thank you.
Really, the purpose of the third meeting was assist the parties to brief. I believe was that there was no based on the evidence. I'll give one example where it was alleged that the burning down of bubbles is an act of, racism against black business owners. And given how the issue was raised, I have no doubt that the allegation was raised conscientiously, and that those who are raising that show also deals with what can be seen. And I know that there may be a lot of instances of experiences that people may have, or feelings people may feel, but we are saying our mandate, we can only be guided by the evidence in hand. Also, another allegation that is dealt with in the report, the allegations against SAPS. We're given a number of cases, that we said that SAPS was not acting appropriately. And I do understand maybe that's the lived experience, but from the response from SAPS, it was clear that the matters were being investigated. Also, in cases where the investigation had been concluded, it was the NPA that decided not to prosecute. So from that, from the information or the evidence that had, we could not make those far-reaching conclusions that you have liked. And by that, we are saying, we're not saying it's not true, but we are saying we can only make findings based on the law and evidence. I think those will be all the questions, unless a program director, we would have missed something. Program director?
No,
Thank
we
you.
haven't. Thank you. I'm gonna take, I've actually received an indication that the preference to take all the questions and then let the panel respond to all the questions. So, Mr. Amato, I've noted your hand, and the two individuals at the back, Mr. Mbonde. Maybe because Mr. Amato has already had a bite, you can give them closer. Can give the mic. Are those the only questions at this point? Okay. Maybe just give to the gentleman and then hand over to Mr. Amato, and then, yeah.
Hello, today. I'm more like a concerned citizen and a resident of others. I grew up in a peaceful place where people wanted to move and wanted the kids to grow up. It was a beautiful little town.
I'm so sorry to cut you in. Please don't forget to introduce yourself.
Yes, I have. I'm so a lot of you have seen me of some of the previous meetings as well. And my thing is, my only question is I'm concerned about the human rights of the residents at this stage. I know there's been some justice in the past that needs to be corrected in the process. And I would say my question would be like, what is the way forward in the formal process to transform that as well, but also to help the human rights of the residents? I mean, if I want to drop a chemical plant next to them, that would be the dam. We're going to stop that. It's going to make sure I don't do it. The same goes for, I don't want to be living in a dam and fear for my life because of criminal. I want to make sure that's not going to happen in the future.